Hello everyone, this is Backstitch workshop. We'd like to show you how to make a horizontal inseam pocket. This is just a mock-up. This is a flap pocket. We'll show you how to make a similar pocket without a flap. We'll make a sample of the front with a horizontal inseam pocket. We need two pocket back details, an underlay piece, and a piece of the interfacing material. First, we need to mark the location of the pocket opening. In our case, it will be 15 cm wide. Make small notches here. I remind you that when sewing a garment, you need to mark the position of the pockets at the fitting. We're making a pocket in the center of the mock-up. You need to make sure that the pockets are beautiful and comfortable. We've cut a stripe of the interfacing material. It was cut on the lengthwise grain. We need to double the lower part of the pocket opening with it. It's a must to do it. It should be done for the pocket opening, not to stretch. Let's also iron the pocket backs and the underlay piece. We're going to edge the underlay piece with an overlocker off the camera. Have a close look here. We've edged the underlay piece with an overlocker off the camera. We've pinned the underlay piece to one of the pocket back details. Next, we need to stitch them. Try to make a seam as close to the overlocker stitching as possible. Have a look here. We've stitched the underlay piece to one of the pocket back details. Let's have a look at the mock-up once again. The notches mark the position of the pocket opening. One of the details is doubled with the interfacing material, and the second one is not. The double detail is the lower one. Next, we need to stitch the pocket back detail, the one without the underlay piece, to the lower part of the mock-up. Pin it according to the notches and then stitch. Be very attentive, please. We are going to stitch 3 edges. Do not forget to make back stitches in the beginning and the ends of the seams. First, we need to stitch the detail for about 1 cm and move it. We should make a horizontal seam here. The width of this seam is 1 cm. Be very attentive, please. Stitch the detail up to the notch. These angles should be right. Do not forget about the back stitch. Have a close look at the seam. There will be 1 cm wide seam here. This is why we made it 1 cm wide here as well. Next, we need to cut the extra piece from the seam. We need to make the seam allowance about 5 mm wide.
Чтобы не было лишней толщины. И очень
Make notches in the angles carefully.
Вот.
Next, we need to top stitch the details.
На этом
We need to stitch the seam allowance towards the pocket back side.
выпуски шва уходят в сторону мешковины кармана.
The width of the seam is 1 mm.
Сейчас будет
Be very attentive, please.
отлично.
Very nice. The seam is neat.
Вывернулись.
Next, we need to iron it.
Посмотрите, какая
Have a look at this frame.
Вот так будет
This is how it looks like from the right side and from the wrong side.
с изнаночной стороны. Все очень аккуратно.
Let's go back to the sewing machine.
Нижняя часть
The lower detail is ready.
заготовлена с мешковиной.
It's doubled with the interfacing material, and there's a pocket back attached to it. Next, we need to pin it to the other pocket back detail, the one with the underlay piece.
И соединить мешковину. Соединить обе мешковины кармана. Скололи.
We've pinned the details.
Единое
This is how the pocket is going to look
У
like.
нас подзор. Внутри карман. Чтобы прошить мешковину
Fold the front this way to stitch the pocket back.
полочку. И идем
Be very attentive, please.
прокладывать строчку.
Natalie is stitching the pocket back details together.
Да,
You can pin the details for stitching if you need to.
чтобы
I remind you that we are making a mock-up. To stitch the other side, we need to fold the front detail as well. Stitch right up to the edge.
Мгм. Хорошо.
We've stitched the pocket backs,
По всему
the three edges.
здесь, здесь, здесь. Эту технологию
This technique is used for making pockets in lined garments.
у вас изделие
If your garment is not lined, you need to edge the back with an overlocker.
сейчас самое интересное. Соединяем
Be very attentive now.
в горизонтальном шве. У нас здесь полностью
We need to stitch the two front details.
точки. Их соединяем.
Be very attentive. The notches should match.
А вот наша контрольная надсетка.
Make sure that they're accurate. This is very important.
Сейчас
Natalie is going to make a horizontal seam here.
помните, что у
The
нас
width of the seam is 1 centimeter.
сантиметр. Будьте внимательны, вот в этом месте, где начинается рамочка, вот здесь вот она прощупывается. Вот, Наташа чувствует ее пальчиками.
Be very careful when stitching along the seam.
Этой рамочкой.
Control the process with the fingers.
Стачиваем,
Natalie is making a horizontal seam on the front.
в котором у нас есть карман.
There is a pocket in the seam.
Вещи получаются, когда
Gamma's visage details look very stylish.
смотрим
Have a look at the result.
самое
This is the right
с
side.
лицевой стороны. Идеально.
Perfect. There is an underlay piece here. This is actually a concealed pocket. Let's go back to the ironing desk. Iron the pocket gently. The detail looks very beautiful. If you are making a garment of strong
У
cotton,
нас
you can top stitch the detail.
части полочки дать отделочную строчку, а вот в этих
You can
местах-
also make seams here. They will make the pocket look very interesting.
а вот здесь
Let's do it, Natalie.
такие небольшие закрепки. Сделаем отделочную строчку. Перед тем, как делать
Before making the decorative stitching, I'd like to show you the wrong side.
внимание, что мы заутюжили шов.
I want to pay attention to the fact that the seam is pressed upwards.
И тут уже насколько
You can decorate the pocket with a flap.
потому что
It's up to you whether to do it or not.
можно поставить любого вида клапан.
It's up to you whether to top stitch the pocket or not.
Что вам захочется.
It's just a matter of the design choice.
Делать отделочную строчку или не делать.
Be creative.
Но мы будем
Use your
делать
imagination.
строчку и две закрепки. На
We've
две
decided to top stitch the detail. The width of the seam is 1 millimeter.
это мы закрепляем
We're basically stitching the seam allowance upwards.
наверх.
This is a very useful technique.
Сделали
We've top stitched the seam.
0,1 по верхней части полочки. Смотрите, если
It's also possible to top stitch the pocket itself,
вот здесь по карману
but it should be done
это нужно
right after stitching these details.
сделали вот здесь расстрочку. Вот вместо
Think about such things in advance.
сделать отделочную. Здесь полет вашей
Be
фантазии
creative.
ограничен.
We'll also make back stitches here to mark the pocket opening. We need to make one more. Next, we need to iron the pocket once again, for the last time. We need to cut the threads and go back to the ironing desk. This is the final ironing.
Будьте
Be very attentive and careful when ironing the details from the right side.
у нас образец, нам все можно. Вот такой красивый
Have a look at the mock-up.
кармашек.
We made a horizontal inseam pocket on the front.
полочки. Отделочную
We've also top stitched the
две
seam.
закрепки.
We were glad to show you this technique. We think that it's very useful.
Мы были рады показать
We'd like to show you a technique for making side pockets and trousers or skirts.
нитки переднего половинки.
We are going to work with the mock-up.
Полотнища. Нам
Imagine this is a
в нашем
skirt,
случае это
the
образец,
front and the back details.
передние и задние
This is the lining.
подкладка.
We also have pieces of fabric for the underlay pieces.
У нас
Let's get down to work.
трафарет.
We've made a pattern for a pocket.
Здесь длина входа в
The
карман.
length of the pocket opening is 18 centimeters.
И вот от верха
The total length of the pocket is 29.5 centimeters.
Этот
This pattern includes the seam allowance.
припусками на швы. Здесь 29,5.
The width is 19
В самом
centimeters.
широком месте 19. Длина
As I've said, the length of the pocket opening is 18 centimeters.
на передней
We put the pattern to the front of the skirt and
отрисовали
outline the pocket opening. We can cut it now.
Для укрепления
Next, we need to double the opening with the interfacing material.
которая вот так, вот
The interfacing material should be cut on the lengthwise grain.
тянется.
It shouldn't stretch.
Будем ее
We've decided to cut all the needed details first and then go to the ironing desk to double the pocket opening.
вот таким
One pocket detail should look like this and the other like this.
и вот такой мы вырезаем.
Natalie will cut two identical details and then cut the extra piece from one of
Сначала
them.
вырежем обе одинаковые, а потом срежем.
This is a perfect pattern for a pocket.
Форму нашего кармана. Очень удобно с ним работать.
Watch what Natalie is doing carefully and attentively. She is cutting right along the pattern. I remind you that you need to make two pockets. We're making just one. This is why Natalie is cutting two details. You need to cut four.
Этот шаблон,
Have a look at the pocket opening once again.
карман.
The width of the pattern here is 14.5 centimeters.
В самом
The widest
широком
point
месте
is 19.5 centimeters wide.
его
The length of the pocket is 29.5 centimeters.
это вот это расстояние.
As I've already said, the opening is 18 centimeters long. The seam allowance on the side seam is 1.5 centimeters. This line should match the side seam of the garment.
Линию вашего бокового шва.
The distance between the edge and the opening is 5 centimeters.
И здесь везде 1,5-сантиметровый шов.
You can make a similar pocket if you want to.
Шаблон.
This is why I'm telling you the measurements. Next, we need to cut the extra piece from one of the details.
Отмечаем,
Do not forget to mark the wrong side in the details.
чтобы не запутаться. Одна деталь
One detail shouldn't be cut, there will be an underlay piece on it,
сейчас будем кроить.
and the second one
Вторая
should be altered according to the pattern.
будет вот так же, как мы ее выкраивали вот здесь.
Cut the extra piece from it.
Вы
Do not forget that you need to fold the fabric in half to make 4 details of the back.
у двух срезаете,
Have a closer here.
вставляете.
This is a pattern for an underlay piece. It was made on the basis of the pocket pattern.
Посмотрели вот здесь, где здесь у нас вход в карман. Вот примерно здесь у нас вход в карман. Сколько
This is the pocket opening.
был? Вот чуть-чуть. От
The distance from the pocket opening is about 5 centimeters.
и красивую линию. Да. Вы
Make a line very beautiful.
здесь вот примерно 5 сантиметров. Меньше,
I don't recommend you making a big underlay piece. It should be neat.
будет выглядывать.
If you make it smaller, the lining will be visible.
Поэтому мы мы сделали такой шаблон. В нашем
We are
случае
cutting just one detail, but you need to cut two.
детали.
We're going to edge this detail with an overlocker off the camera. The underlay piece is ready.
Подзор.
We've edged it with an overlocker.
Его.
Next, we need to double the pocket opening with the interfacing material. It should be done for the pocket opening to be stronger
Вход в карман.
and for it not to stretch.
Все, вот, теперь он уже нерастяжимый. Теперь уже
It's very important.
карман при использовании не будет вот так оттягиваться.
Let's go to the sewing machine.
Машинку. Обратите
Have a close look at the details.
Переднее полотнище юбки.
This is the front of the skirt. This is the first pocket bag detail. This is the second one, the one with the underlay piece. Natalie is going to stitch one of the pocket bag details, the one with no underlay piece in it, to the front of the skirt. We need to pin the details for stitching.
Очень удобно, что они у нас одной формы здесь.
The width of the seam is 5 millimeters. Do not forget to make back stitches in the beginning and the end of the seams. Have a close look here.
Начало строчки.
Notice
Вот в
that the
этом
seam
месте.
starts about 1.5 centimeters away from the edge. It's very important to make a notch here.
Вот эта маленькая надсечка,
Here it is.
она очень нужна.
It should be done for us to be able to turn the pocket inside out neatly.
Карман на изнаночную сторону.
Next, we need to top stitch the detail. The width of the seam is 1 millimeter. Stitch to the very end.
Смотрите,
You can make a bigger notch if you need to.
порезать,
Just don't cut too much.
чтобы лучше вывернулось. Всё, это деталь.
We'll iron this detail later.
А мы
Next, we need to stitch the underlay piece.
подзор.
Join the edges.
По вот этому краю.
Make sure that they match perfectly. Pin the details and stitch them. We're stitching the underlay piece to the pocket back detail. Be very careful and attentive.
Мешковина никуда не съехала.
Let's go to the ironing desk.
Утюжим. А тут
Iron the pocket.
притаченную мешковину. Где делали,
Be very attentive.
здесь все расправили.
Spread the beginning of the seam neatly.
Бывают случаи, когда мы вместо
In
того,
some
чтобы
cases,
сразу
you may
притачать
need to stitch the
мешковину,
underlay piece to the upper detail of the
большой
back
подзор. Тут уже
as
как
well.
вам захочется. И вот
Have a look at the right side.
Здесь расстрочку сделали, а вы можете
You can make decorative seams here if you want to.
как угодно,
Be
как вам
creative.
захочется. Любая ваша фантазия.
Natalie is ironing the second pocket back detail.
Идем.
Let's go back to the sewing machine now.
Большую
Join the pocket back details and pin them.
накладываем на маленькую.
Make sure that the edges match.
Благодаря
The details were made according to the same pattern, so we know for sure that they are accurate. When the details are pinned, we'll stitch them.
И проложить строчку.
The pocket is going to be very beautiful. This extra piece can be cut.
Он нам больше не понадобится. Будем прокладывать строчку.
Natalie is going to stitch the pocket back up to this point. If you work accurately and cut identical details, it won't be a problem for you to stitch them.
Соединили две мешковины, и вот у вас уже
The pockets would be very neat.
такой величины у вас подзор. Какой красивый получается кармашек. У Наташечки. Сейчас этот срез
We need to edge the pocket back with an overlocker. We'll do it off the camera.
обработать
We've edged the pocket back with an overlocker.
мешковину.
It's already ironed, and next we need to pin it. It should be done for us to be able to stitch it to the back detail of the skirt.
Полотнищем юбки. Или
You can also make such pockets and trousers.
верхней половинкой. Такой карман украсит любое изделие. И на платье
This
сделать
technique is very useful. You can decorate the pockets however you want.
технология.
I show you a lot of useful techniques and details.
Благодаря этому
I wanted to be able to use them in different garments you sew.
украсить. Обратите внимание,
Have a
вот в
close look
этом
here.
месте у нас сейчас строчка будет
The seam allowance here is 1.5 centimeters.
на шов у нас. И у нас
We need to draw a mark here in order for us to be able to stitch this point accurately from the wrong side.
мы здесь отмечаем. Просто слегка отмечаем.
Natalie is stitching the side seam. The width of the seam is 1.5 centimeters.
Отлично. Вот
Make sure that the edge of the pocket opening
месте.
is hidden inside of the seam.
Ну-ка. И здесь
Perfect.
можно.
Due to the fact
Мой контроль
that we made a checkpoint, Natalie was able to stitch the details accurately.
аккуратно
Iron the
прокручиваем
seam.
шов. Сейчас этот шов
Be very
обработать
careful.
оверлоком.
This seam should be edged with an overlock as well.
В сторону.
Natalie is pressing the seam towards the back.
Это на самом деле самый простой способ.
This is the most simple technique for making side pockets.
Это у нас подробно показано в курсе по изготовлению мужских брюк.
The only thing left to be done is for us to make bar tacks here. Natalie is making back stitches. She's making them on the sides of the pocket opening.
Помимо того, что
It should be done for these points to be stronger.
она предотвращает карман от разрыва. А верхняя
They prevent the pocket from tearing apart.
как притачен пояс. Но мы ее
The upper back stitch is usually made after the waistband is attached to the skirt.
поставили
We'll do it now.
где у нас будет притачен пояс.
Mark the point of the waistband and make the back stitch 5 mm away from this point.
Должна быть закрепка.
When you stitch the waistband, the upper edge of the back will be fixed.
Будет притачен пояс. Отлично.
Very nice. Have a close look at the pocket.
Какой красивенький получился у нас.
It's very neat both from the wrong and from the right side.
С лицевой стороны.
Very beautiful.
Изнанки.
This is just one of the techniques for making such pockets.
Молодец.
We hope that you find our lessons useful. That's all for today. Be different and beautiful. We are Natalie and Ira. Buy our courses, subscribe to this channel, write comments, share the videos, press like and the bell buttons. We would really appreciate your support. Thank you. Goodbye.